Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I-24 News, where we provide a daily view on world markets and the global economy. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Well, coming up today, in the U.S. state of Florida, some residents already feel and fear the effects of climate change. Rising tides threaten to sink the value of their coastline properties. And global leaders reach an historic deal on climate change, calling on the world to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters hope that the agreement will spark a surge of investment in renewable energy and other technologies. Well, let's start now with the financial headlines. Asian stocks closed mostly lower Monday as investors eagerly watch now for a decision from the U.S. Federal Reserve on a largely anticipated rate hike midweek. Japan's Nikkei plunged almost 2%. The Hang Seng fell 0.72%, but the Shanghai rose more than 2.5%. In contrast, European equities were higher early in the day ahead of an ECB head Mario Draghi speech, but dropped as oil broke a new low of $35 a barrel. By the afternoon trading, London's FTSE up 0.04%, Germany's DAX declined 0.59%, and the French CAC slid 0.22%. U.S. Dow futures seem poised for a lower open as well. Well, economic relations between Japan and India strengthened over the weekend on the heels of the Japanese leader's visit to New Delhi. As a result of meetings between Japan's PM Shinzo Abe and his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, Tokyo will provide $12 billion toward India's first bullet train. The two leaders also deepened ties in the defense and nuclear energy fields as a way to offset China's rise as Asia's dominant power. Well, in addition to both being nationalists, the leaders of the world's second and third largest economies are also said to be personal friends.
Today, India takes pride that there is a Make in India movement in Japan. And I'm told that around $11 to $12 billion has been specified for Make in India. This clearly shows how the two countries can move forward.
Turkmenistan started work on its part of a natural gas pipeline to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India on Sunday. The $10 billion project is meant to reduce the nation's dependence on gas sales to Russia and China. The pipeline's completion is slated for December 2019 and is expected to have a capacity of 33 billion cubic meters. Despite the grandeur of this project, it still faces key risks, like the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan and the lack of clarity on its financing.
This flagship project will usher in a new era and transform the lives of the millions of our people, making TAPI a symbol of shared prosperity and socio-economic development.
Well, in 5 days, South Africa has had 3 finance ministers. Embattled leader Jacob Zuma's many U-turns here came after he first dropped his first choice for finance minister, Nhlanhla Nene, last week, and then replaced him with outsider David Van Rooyen. After facing a wave of criticism and turmoil in currency and equity markets, he then changed his position yet again, appointing another finance head, government insider Pravin Gordhan. Well, Gordhan previously held the role of finance minister between 2009 and 2014, which brought loud cheer from both the markets and investors. And Turkey's leader, Tayyip Erdogan, reportedly signaled fresh willingness now to strengthen ties with Israel. During a fight back from Turkmenistan, the Turkish leader said that normalization with Israel would be good for the entire region. Erdogan still wants Israel to provide a compensation deal for the Mavi Marmaraz raid victims and a lifting of the blockade against Palestinians. Turkey is Israel's 7th largest trading partner. Well, in the U.S. state of Florida, climate change there poses a real threat now to the real estate market.
Kathy Snow came to the Florida Keys 19 years ago to live by the sea. But she never intended to be this close to the water. Higher than normal tides recently turned her street into a month-long swamp. Like her neighbors, Kathy worries that rising seas will make tidal floods worse and sink the value of her house, worth about $700,000.
This is our dream town. I don't think anyone would want to come in and look at the house and come through salt water and want to buy it.
While South Florida is on the front line of rising sea levels, concerns like Snow's don't seem to be hurting its real estate market. In the Keys alone, sales are up 17% compared to last year, and the average price of a home has risen 3%. But with sea levels expected to climb up to 26 inches by 2060, geologist Henry Briseño says South Florida is bound to take a hit.
Sea level in the future for all these coastal communities is that they are going to be affected. They're going to pay more taxes. They're going to pay more in repairs of their properties due to flooding. And sooner or later, they'll have to move. And by that time, those properties are going to be worth nothing.
Local authorities say they're working on modifications to the region's landscape to guard against even the grimmest predictions.
For the next 15 years, I think we're fairly set in. We're going to be able to modify our roads and elevate them as necessary, and our infrastructure, our buildings, to ensure that we can adapt and meet the rising seas. Now, for the years 2060 and beyond, it's a farther horizon. We're going to have to look at more creative ways to deal with sea level rise.
Doug Prue and his family have already been forced to adapt to the rising salt water.
As you can see, it's much higher, much elevated. We've had to buy an extra car that's a bit higher for when these particular times that floods occur in the neighborhood, so we can continue to get in and out without ruining the brakes of particularly my wife's van, which is much lower to the ground.
But he says his biggest fear is that eventually the climbing sea level will force him out of a place he's called home for almost 30 years.
Representatives from almost 200 nations united in Paris over the weekend, pledging now to cut greenhouse gas emissions to protect the future of the Earth. Well, despite the wave of optimism there, some environmentalists do remain skeptical. Here's more from Daniel Roth.
An historic moment took place in Paris this week. With fanfare and excitement, a 31-page near global agreement was adopted by almost 200 countries, calling on the world to curb greenhouse gas emissions in order to slow dangerous climate change.
I now invite the COP to adopt a decision entitled Paris Agreement outlined in this document. Looking around the room, I see the reaction is positive. I hear no objections. The Paris Climate Agreement is adopted.
The Paris Agreement focuses on limiting global warming to below 2 degrees, with the aim of keeping it within 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels, as a given country's progress is reviewed on 5-year intervals. But the ways and means to achieve this remain unclear, and many, including leaders in the environmental justice movement, remain skeptical.
We have to understand that the job has not even begun yet. All we've got is a broad direction. We have a lot of work to do to fill in the detail. One of the sad things about the agreement is that all the aspirational and positive commitments in the text is very vague and has lots of loopholes in them.
Also discussed were goals of equalizing the burden on developing nations in the shifting economic reality, with $100 billion per year by 2020 gathered from richer nations in the form of public funds, donations, and private investments. This could take the form of international aid, or, for example, a Western European country building a wind farm in the Sahara. But financing and reduction targets were kept to appendices, a loophole so that the U.S. president wouldn't have to take the pact to Congress for approval, which may have failed in passing.
This agreement represents the best chance we've had to save the one planet that we've got. So I believe this moment can be a turning point for the world.
Though many see the deal as a landmark shift in the global will and ability to change course, and others see it as inadequate, the global economy will begin to shift. As renewable energy is sought after, and economies, particularly those dependent on oil exports, diversify, new industries will be born, and around 60 million new jobs over the next 15 years are set to be created, according to the International Labour Organization. Indeed, the Paris Agreement is one key step in what will need to be many toward a more sustainable civilization.
Well, for Insight Now on the climate deal, we are joined on set by Nora Yerushalmi, Executive Director at Life and Environment, an Israeli Union of Environmental NGOs, and Netta Ahituv, journalist at Haaretz Daily Paper. Thank you both very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, 190 nations here signed this deal.
Yeah.
Can we expect any big change from the business community?
Yes, it's very exciting, first of all, and historical, and it's a roadmap for all the business community now all over the world. It says we are done with the coal, oil, and gas era, and we're heading towards a new era, renewable energies, as it said in the report, new jobs, new opportunities, new technologies. Israel could be, the leading point of that with its clean tech industries. And yes, also big people with a lot of money are calling the other big people with a lot of money to stop investing in those industries and invest into new industries and give hope to this, this whole thing, just set the framework for really a new future.
Provide a guideline here for nations all over the world to aspire to at least. And you do mention Israel's contribution. We do have a clip from the Israeli Prime Minister. Let's take a watch.
My office has launched an initiative to reduce global dependence on crude oil, especially in transportation, by establishing Israel as a global leader in the search for fuel alternatives. I believe that it's not enough that we have those ideas or that we apply those ideas in our own country. We're eager to share them with you, both individually and and as a collective body as well.
Well, Noor, you were at the conference. What has Israel accomplished in regards to climate change?
Well,
do you think Netanyahu's statement here is portraying it accurately?
Well, it was very important that Netanyahu actually took part in the conference. It's the first time ever that the Israeli leader, the Israeli Prime Minister, participates in such an event. But in my view, the convention was a business opportunity that Israel missed. We're talking about a $100 billion per year green climate foundation that the UN is establishing. A country should be a serious player in this world game of climate mitigation and adaptation in order to achieve part of this foundation to its own startups, technologies, and transfer of technologies. And Israel didn't play a very serious role in the convention. We had two humble technology events. We did announce, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced our very humble, very low goals for GHG emissions, the lowest almost of the OECD, second only to Mexico. So we didn't put ourselves as a serious partner or a serious player in this game, and this is something to be achieved in the future.
Why do you think that happened?
Everybody's talking about ratifying the agreement and how will the UN be able to actually enforce it. So there are three ways: transparency, this 5 years reviews, and financial incentives that will be given to the countries. And Israel just missed a really big opportunity, and we hope it won't miss it in the future. But actually the UN and the rich countries are going to pay for poor countries and for countries that will be early adopters of these new technologies. So we do have a huge chance to do something about it, and also to be, to have financial gratitude for it.
Interesting.
I think that Israel took the whole idea wrong in reverse. Israeli decision makers look at it as, what are we going to do for the world? And most countries look at it exactly the opposite. What can this deal, what can this new foundation do for us, for our economy, for our jobs, for our export? And if Israeli decision makers will get this idea, we can change the course of events. And if Israel will invest in reducing use of oil and coal, boosting public transportation, green building, etc., then we'll be a serious player in this game, and we can achieve a larger role in this whole world event.
And you mentioned the coal industry, both of you here. We had one of the leaders of the World Coal Association say that there's still room here for them to grow. So is there still enough change being made out of this deal?
So we can look at the U.S. for the answer. Obama just declared this Clean Power Act. It's a huge thing. It's the biggest thing that any country ever did to move on from coal. And I think he set an example for all the other countries to follow. Yes, there is still coal, oil, and gas industry. I don't think it will disappear tomorrow, but it will slowly fade. away, and we are I think faster and faster going into a renewable energy way. Also, the Arab countries, they realize that Dubai is one of the biggest solar panel country in the world, and also India and Asia. Asia is also setting kind of the course of events, as Naol said, towards clean energy.
Fascinating. And earlier you were mentioning that actually some Arab countries were leaders in this area.
Yes, we saw, not only the big players like Saudi Arabia, but even Tunisia, which is a smaller country close to Europe, very similar to us, had there a whole pavilion and held several events and trying to put itself in a position of a serious player, while Israel was more interested in seeing what the world will demand of it to do and took a more cautious position.
Well, fascinating. Hopefully they will take a more daring position on that front. That does wrap up our show today. Do stay tuned here every day for all your global economic news. I'm Natalie Ehrlich from the Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much for watching.